Welcome to r/malicious compliance, where we share stories of people conforming to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. And today we have 3 great stories, so subscribe, hit the like button, and let's begin. The first story. With the OT, I was clocking north of 2K more than intended every month because my boss canceled my commissions. The second story. When a person demands you help nobody, they deserve what they get when you don't help them. The third story. I obeyed my boss, started doing less work, and soon left work. Today's first story is, oh, you've made me hourly instead of salary because you're afraid I'll stop selling after I hit my commission cap. Should've just let me stay home. Years ago, I was an inside sales rep for a simultaneously large and tiny company in a niche market. The quotes are because it was at least equally outside sales. I just didn't go outside except to smoke. I've since quit. They had about 50 branches across the country of various sizes. The smallest was literally one guy who processed local orders and used hotshots for delivery. The largest had about 50 employees. I made 6 for my branch. I was literally the first salesman with a background in anything resembling sales that my branch had ever hired. They'd always hired the least socially awkward industry professionals they could prior to me, and they'd had their CSR doing the selling over a year until I came on, so expectations were high. When they hired me, we had somewhat heated negotiations over the comp plan. It was a $42K base salary plus commission with a $56K OTE and $65K cap. I asked what I was meant to do after I hit the cap, to which they replied, "Continue to do your job?" As if I wasn't going to have a problem with generating new business for free. I said that I was going to need a bonus structure beyond the cap if they wanted me to do any more hunting after that point. I made it clear that I'd service my accounts when they called, but I wanted to be clear that they were going to be disappointed if they expected me to make outbound calls looking for new business. After I'd maxed my comp plan, and that I definitely enjoyed the extra time at home with my family over the holidays. They said they understood, and we went through the onboarding. I worked almost exactly 40 hours for almost 2 months, early October to early December, before I had jury duty and missed a day. My check was about $150 light compared to what it had been, so I complained to payroll. Benefits kicked in at 90 days. That's when I found out I was making $21 an hour and was not in fact pulling a salary. Presumably this was to force me into the office, as we didn't have remote access to the local network that logged our hours, just the ordering and inventory software. I didn't get even a prorated Christmas bonus because that counts as benefits, and you have to work 90 days to receive those. Cue malicious compliance. I discovered that if I left the house 30 minutes earlier, my 80-minute commute would take less than 25, so instead of showing up around 8:30 and chilling in my car for a bit so I was working at 9, I was there at 7 with the warehouse guy sending emails. I started working through lunch, as I ate at my desk, as opposed to burning an hour off campus or in the break room. I didn't even realize I was losing an hour a day to lunch. I also discovered that if I stayed till 6:30, I'd get home by 7, as opposed to leaving a little after 5 and getting home around 6:30. So I spent an extra 5 hours a week away from home, and worked an extra 22 compared to the 35 I was getting paid for before I figured it out. I'd occasionally push towards 80 hours the last week of the month. You bet your A the Workforce Commission would have heard from me if I hadn't been able to milk that clock. With the OT, I was clocking north of 2K more than intended every month, and oddly enough, no one even noticed until the internal auditor verified W-2s and noticed that I made significantly more than the branch manager. I didn't hit my commission cap until late November, so I spent the rest of the year training with the tech and/or warehouse guy, both stoners. They tried to put me on the same salaried comp plan I'd originally agreed to, but it was enough of a pay cut to qualify for constructive dismissal, so I got to quit and still collect unemployment for a month before I found another gig. Why didn't you pay attention to this when they gave you an offer letter to sign? Why didn't you find out about it until 2 months later? That's when I found out I was making $21 an hour and was not in fact pulling a salary. How do you work, get a paycheck, not check that paycheck until the 3rd month? The company did stupid things to you, but to some extent you actually gave them license to do whatever they wanted with you, either by not actually reading your offer letter or by agreeing to start the job without any formal offer. I'm surprised that the only thing they did was move you to hourly pay, but at the same equivalent pay rate. Sounds like they almost caught you in that trap. A good job throwing this at them. It takes the courage of an adult to fight back like this. Many people don't know how to win in a game of life like this. My husband is in sales. He did their biggest project by a margin of a few zeros, and then the day the delivery order went through, they capped his commission. I'm still ugly angry about that, and it's been 3 years. The next story is, don't help anyone else, even your boss. A couple of years back, I was hired as a programmer for a large online company in the Pacific Northwest. One of the reasons this team hired me was my ability to solve problems that other people would get stuck on. In addition to my main area of expertise, I'm extremely well versed in international settings and how they're influenced by various countries and cultures within that country. When a new manager arrived to our group, he decided he did not want me helping out other people with their issues. Regardless of whether it was our team or another team, he wanted me to devote 100% of my time to my own project. I wasn't happy with this, but he's the boss. I accepted his request. It was really more of a demand. One week I was handed a project that 3 other people had failed to complete. We worked in 2-week periods called sprints. For some reason, he'd pulled it from each developer after he'd decided it was taking too long. Since it was my turn, I committed myself to resolving the problem before he could pull it again. For 2 weeks, I continued to update my team and project lead about the status of the project. Everybody knew it would take extra time except the manager, who didn't bother to attend the daily status meeting. The last day of the sprint, the manager finally shows up and learns that I spent the entire 2 weeks to resolve this issue. After everybody left, he held me behind and demanded to know what I had been wasting my time on. Rather than waiting for an answer, he accused me of working on other things instead of the project he assigned, and even threatened to remove the code that he didn't believe was necessary, effectively destroying the solution because he was too angry to let it go. At this point, I doubled my resolve to help nobody during core hours, and that ended up affecting him the worst. This was fine with me. I'm good at what I do and I can easily finish my work and go home early. Within a week, this manager was beginning to suffer from me minding my own business. One day I overheard him and a coworker having problems with a database connection. They spent hours troubleshooting an issue where the database helped returning dates to another computer in day, month, year format instead of month, day, year format. What they lost an entire day on and failed to realize was the account they were using was set as a French language user. French dates start with day instead of month. Eventually, they coded a workaround to this problem, but the issues continued. For weeks, I enjoyed overhearing the difficulties these two faced with problems. I could answer in my sleep. I never felt remorse for this particular developer, because he's the kind of lazy cowboy coder that really gets what's coming to him anyway. We were fixing his code mistakes 2 years after he left the company. The saddest part for this manager was that he knew my skill set. I'm pretty sure he knew I could solve his problems, but he never came to ask. I never offered. I let him suffer in silence. In his short time with the company, this manager earned such a bad reputation among his peers that he had to ask his own employees to make requests on his behalf. Soon he was demoted. Edit. The problem I solved wasn't due to any great skill on my part. I happened to have worked on something similar a couple of months earlier. I was already familiar with the problem. Additionally, the previous developer was already close to solving it, so I was largely adding to his work. He knew this. I wasn't taking credit. The later issue was a complete coincidence. The manager knew Java/Hadoop. I know Microsoft technologies. He was outside of his specialty, but still failed to ask for help. 2 or 3 people could have solved his problem, but he didn't ask. I overheard it because my desk was 5 feet away, but I put my headphones on and concentrated on my own work. The reality of the situation was that if I offered to help, it would have been met with hostility or dismissiveness. I had the choice of enjoying the train wreck from a distance, or being a part of the train wreck. I hate managers who have to break things down into separate little tasks to simplify management work, even if it reduces efficiency. I had a manager like that. He was always complaining that I was wasting time on a task. I told him that I was helping other people on the team. Helping them was part of my job and mission goals, and you don't want me to put that on my weekly report, so I combined it with Task X on the report. This jerk didn't want me to help people, so he kept telling me to shut up and go back to my work, while I was helping and explaining things to the developer. But the thing is that the other developers were friends, and my manager wasn't, so I guess I obeyed when I quit my job. The last story is, strictly stick to the work hours and top an hour extra? You have it, boss. This happened just before I quit my last job. Some 4 years ago, I was working with the largest IT company in my country. It is known for being employee-friendly, with very relaxed working hours and good perks and emoluments. However, the delivery head of our project, our boss, had a totally different outlook. Officially, we were supposed to work from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., but nobody stressed about it because clocking in a total of 45 hours a week was the only compliance required. Personally, I like to work till late, less traffic while returning, so I'd go to work by 10 to 10:30. The client never used to bother us before 11. Not very disciplinary on my part, I know, but that was the general trend in that company. This boss guy suddenly decided to become draconian about punctuality in office hours. Everyone is expected at their workstations by 9. Nonetheless, all of us complied, saying, if 45 hours is the only rule, so be it. Cue malicious compliance 1. Now, since in my team I was the last person to leave every day, I had voluntarily taken up a few extra technical responsibilities that needed to be addressed only after everyone signed off and after the client was done for the day, which was never before 8. As you can guess, it immediately became chaotic when I began, reaching at 9 and leaving at 6 every day. Needless to say, the boss was helplessly out of his wits and had to stay back himself most of the nights for a week to wrap up the closing tasks. Yes, he always used to leave by 6 before this. He was neither much acquainted with the SOPs, nor could he gather aid from any of his staff, so he really found himself in a mess. They could have simply reinstated our work hours. Instead, this is what they do one fine evening. Boss, why are you leaving now? Me, I'm done for the day. It's 6:30 already. Boss, who will do the technical responsibilities? Me, but then I'd have to stay for another 2 hours. Boss, okay, let's see. During the last 1 month, you've come to work after 10 every day. That's 20 to 22 hours of deficiency. I couldn't decide if I should laugh or be infuriated at his nonsensical statement. Me, but I've worked till 8:30 p.m. every day. So not only that's incorrect, but I've actually worked 20 to 22 hours more, for which I should claim overtime payment. Boss, then why didn't you? Dismissing. Anyway, that's a separate topic altogether. From tomorrow, you're either coming an hour early or staying an hour late for a whole month to compensate for your deficiency. Cue malicious compliance too. At that time, I was preparing for another high-paying job in the government sector that requires an immensely tough competitive exam to be cleared, for which I needed to put in a lot of effort and time into studying and researching. The exams were due in a month, and I was struggling with the latter as I used to return late. So I saw this as the optimal opportunity, a kill two birds with a stone situation. I decided to comply. Well, I began to clock in at 8 every day, study and research vigorously for an hour without any disturbance, using the company's internet, printer, stationaries, and whatever other utilities required, and managed to be ready with my work by 9. For a whole month, I fueled my exam preparation from the company's resources, and yes, I claimed full overtime payment too. To be honest, a lot of times I used to feel guilty about this, but the pleasure I got from submitting my resignation letter after I got the job I was preparing for was a wholesome, out-of-the-world feeling. Edit. Yes, I am from, and this post is about a company based in India. I don't understand these people who don't seem to know what their job is. Their job is to manage the team and fulfill their responsibilities. It's not flicking a whip and watching people dance for your entertainment. It's not filling out logs and setting their own made-up schedules. I once worked in an office where the wall clock was 5 minutes behind. Worse, it matched the time on our computers, so our computers showed the same thing. Every day I left not at 5 p.m., but at 5:05 p.m. No big deal, but it was harder to get out of the office if you were even 5 minutes late, because another company in our building was out at the same time. I got real-time data from the NNTP server, internet clock, and reset my PC time. I started leaving at exactly 5, about 5 minutes before the rest of the team. A few weeks later, my supervisor took me aside and asked me why I was leaving early every day. I explained the time discrepancy and my decision. I then explained that if he thought I was leaving early, I would make up for it by coming in 15 minutes earlier each day for the past 2 years. The wall clock and network time were corrected on the same day. Don't forget to subscribe and have a nice day.